I was the person at the W2 that was like, what am I doing with my life? Like, what am I doing? Like, it was really hard on me at times. And also because I tried a number of different jobs, I felt like I was also receiving the kind of outside criticism of he doesn't know what he wants to do, you know? And I also feel like this is kind of a recurring thing with like entrepreneurial types. Like you try a lot of different things. That's part of the entrepreneurial process. You try and fail at different things and you pivot. And people from the outside that don't do that as much, they see that as like you don't have any direction, right? But what you're trying to do is like figure out what's going to work best and then go with that.
Welcome to the Wealth with Purpose podcast. This is the first episode out of tons many, and I got my good friend, my buddy, my I don't know what else to call you, but I got Josiah Smeltzer here with me. What's going on, dude?
Dude, first podcast. I'm so pumped to be here, man.
Yeah, I'm glad you accepted my invitation. I know I was debating like who could be my first guest, and honestly, the first thought that came was you, and I already know I was 100% sure that it needed to be you. So I appreciate you
went
coming.
And saved the best for first.
Oh man, how you been, man? Talk to me.
Good, man. Hey, the snow is coming down outside.
Mm-hmm.
The kids are out. We've been outside in the snow, and I did my cold shower this morning. The water was extra cold coming out of there. I know you've been doing some of the same stuff, but man,
yeah,
I am really into that, dude. I am really into that. I love the way my body feels after I do it, and man, I mean, I know that's a completely different topic for another time. But
no, we can talk about it here, man. Honestly,
let's talk about it sometime. But like cold water, it's got some really crazy effects that you get and benefits you get if you do this stuff consistently. So I really think that it could solve a lot of problems for people if they did it. So
yeah, and I mean, I'm doing it. So I'm doing 1 minute cold water after my showers in the morning.
Yeah.
And man, like I follow Gary Brecka, and you follow what's that guy's name?
Oh man, if you hadn't asked me, I could have told you.
My bad.
What's that dude? Oh, Andrew Huberman.
Yeah, and they talk. Yeah. I followed him now, and they talk similar, very similar things. And one of those is like your attitude when you walk out of there. It's hard to be in a bad mood after a cold shower.
It is. And like I was telling my wife, my wife's a counselor. I was telling her, like, I think this could be the solution for people struggling with like anxiety, depression.
Yes.
Chronic inflammation, like chronic pain, that kind of stuff. Like I've been watching so many YouTube videos on this subject because, I had about 2 years ago, I got really sick, and I was sick for the better part of probably a year and a half. And now I'm like almost 100% better.
Wow.
But a lot of it started with a lot of inflammation. Like I couldn't figure out why I was getting all this inflammation, and I was having joint pain and all this. Since I've been doing this cold therapy, I don't have any of that stuff. And I think a lot of it, like even like people that are struggling with depression, when you get in that water, it has a drastic effect on your body. Like, it's gonna tamper down inflation. It's gonna tamper down inflammation.
Yep.
And your vessels. Your vessels.
Right.
Go ahead.
No, yeah, I was gonna say, that's what Gary Brecka, the way he explained it is like your vessels, they get in what's called like defensive mode, because when that water hits you, that cold water hits you, your body gets like defensive. So like your blood vessels, they kind of like exercise their muscles into. I don't know the scientific way of saying it, but basically your blood flows better. And I think the only time to get that, I remember, but I can't remember exactly what he said, but it's like, is it when you sleep or something like that? I can't remember, but that's the only time when your blood vessels work those muscles. So there's huge benefits to that. And
you get that. And then, yeah, dude. And then when you get out, okay, you have the endorphin, all the feel good chemicals are released in your body, dopamine. You have
Mm-hmm.
endorphins, adrenaline, norepinephrine, all this stuff. This comes out, so you get this high, you get this high, like natural high from the body, and then they've done studies on this, and this lasts for hours. And so,
Mm-hmm.
like, I
Mm-hmm.
did this when I got up at 6:30 this morning, but I still feel good. And and it's one of those things. Like, I would say, like, if you're struggling with depression, like, go try this. Like, I do 3 minutes. I do 3 minutes every single day, and they've proven you can get benefits from doing it for 30 seconds. You know,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
but the Andrew Huberman on one of his podcasts was talking about how a lady who did research on it, and you can find her name in his podcast. And I bought her book. I can't remember her name off the top of my head,
Mm-hmm.
but anyway, she did studies on this, and she found that if you do, I think it's 16 minutes a week of it, that it builds up your brown fat, and the brown
Yes,
fat
Gary
is
Brecka did say that too.
the brown fat is actually a good thing. So obese people have too much white fat, and brown fat, they have too little brown fat. That's why you get cold so easily.
Mm.
And when you replace that brown fat, the brown fat raises your metabolism and makes you less likely to get diabetes and all these other really great health benefits. But anyway, I think like cold plunges and cold showers are something that everybody should check out if they feel like they're in a place where they're healthy enough to try it.
Oh yeah, and one of the things I always say, like, I don't want people to think that I'm doing this because I want to live forever. Because a lot of things this helps you, it's longevity, and it's not that I want to live forever. The reason why I'm obsessed with health, with my well being of my body, is because of an experience. I went to I've told you before. I went to a mission trip over in Belize, and dude, I remember. I mean, we were building a roof for a lady, replacing a roof, and I remember after like maybe day 5, dude, my whole body was in pain. And at the time, I was like 28 years old. 2 years ago, and we were working with some older folks, and honestly, they were in great shape. Like, you looked at them, they look better than me. And I'm telling myself, one of my goals is to give back to others until I can't no more. But if I hit 40 and I could barely move, and I could barely lift 50 pounds, I mean, what's the whole point? So me, I'm obsessed right now with taking care of my body. My wife as well. I'm obsessed with taking care of her. Where we're to the point where we're eating, mostly organic, non-GMO foods. To the point where I'm doing the cold water shower. I got my wife to try the cold water shower. It was hilarious. She was jumping in the shower, but it was funny. But have you gotten Sarah to do it yet?
Dude, Sarah doesn't want anything to do with it.
Now I know
but
you,
she,
you
yeah,
you did the
she said when she
plunge
was
with Mark though, right?
when she was a sprinter in high school,
Mhm.
she had a muscle injury, and they made her do this, and she said it was miserable. You know, so I'm talking to her about it, but she's more cold natured than I am to begin with, and
That's a
so
start. That's a start.
she's watching it. She's watching these videos with me, and she sees how excited I am about it, but I haven't gotten her on board yet. I'm working on her.
You did the cold water, like you actually submerged yourself in what, 30-degree weather was it back then
Oh
when you
yeah,
did it?
yeah. It was 35 the other day, and the water coming out of the tap was like freezing cold. We got in
Man.
there. I got Mark in there. It was a lot of fun.
Watch that
So,
video. Go follow Josiah and watch that video. It's hilarious. I mean, the way Mark was scrunched up in there. Anywho, well, the reason let me tell people the reason why I started this podcast is really I want to motivate everybody to be able to give back in some kind of way, whether that is with your skills, with your talents, giving portion of your wealth, whatever it is. The most expensive thing that you possess, I think, is your life, and that translates into your time. So I'm not just talking about money. Time, you giving your time to others, I think, is where people can give the most. So, Josiah, I know we've talked a lot about giving back, and I know you've given a lot back through your channels, through your book, through the podcast. And that's what I want to dive into today, and your mentality behind all of that. So, first things first, for those that don't know who you are, a lot of people already know who you are, but in case they don't, who is Josiah Smelser?
oh man, So long story short, I grew up in Alabama. I have a family of 5 now. I'm married with 3 kids, and I'm one of those 5, of course. And then I bounced around from job to job to job after graduating in undergrad,
Hmm.
and was always frustrated by the 9 to 5 world. I just didn't feel like I fit. I could never really find something that really lit my fire, even though I found some jobs I stayed at for years. Some I didn't stay at so long, but
Hmm.
long story short, I ended up leaving there and starting my own business, and that was the best thing I ever did. So, um, but who I am is not what I do. Who I am is who I am in Christ and my faith.
Hmm.
So I'm a Christian, and I have a desire to use my life to help other people, and I think that's what we are if we're people of faith. We want to love others as Christ loves us, and we want to give of our life to make the world a better place. The hard thing is how to do that best,
Yep.
and that's what I'm working on. Is like I want to help a lot of people, and I know it starts with one person, but like I'm trying to use my entrepreneurial gifts and skills that I've developed um to try to like really change the world. So that's really what I'm working on.
Yeah.
But and I was kind of shaped as a child when my parents moved us to Tanzania, which is East Africa. They moved us there when I was 12 years old. So I grew up in Florence, Alabama, small town in the South. It's not super small. It's like 100,000 people in this area that I lived. But to Tanzania, we were like rural Africa, like out in the middle of
Mm.
nowhere, no telephone, no air conditioning, couldn't drink the water coming out of the tap, concrete floors, but our house was nicer than a lot of the locals' houses around us, like a lot of mud huts and stuff around there. And I saw what poverty really looks like. And
Mm.
I became best friends with all the local kids. So it was like
How old were you when this happened? When
I
you
was
moved in?
12. I was 12.
Wow.
So like one white kid and all black kids, like and it was like it was a great thing in my life because like it's good for you to go somewhere where you're not the norm, and then to be able to like culturally learn how to adapt and fit in. And so I've always felt like I had the ability to be dropped off anywhere and fit in,
Hmm.
and learn how to fit in. And honestly, I feel like in a very strange way, I fit in better in those. Like I feel like you could take me over to some random country and drop me off, and I'd be just fine. I feel
Hmm.
like sometimes it's harder to fit in here, because a lot of people in the U.S. they don't have this mindset of like how thankful they are for what they have. And over there, it's like these kids had absolutely nothing. They were happy to get a piece of gum or have
Yeah.
a soccer ball. Like anything little was a big deal to them. And so like we lived over there for a year, and I spent my time, out in the mountains and the woods in Africa running around with these kids, and we had a pet monkey and named Sergeant Bananas. That's another story for another time. But I got malaria 5 times that year. But,
Ooh.
I would go to these
So
kids'
you,
houses, and it was like a mud hut with one room in it and a family of 8 living in there,
wow.
and they're all sleeping on the ground, and they got these little like makeshift mattresses that are not like super thin, like they're basically sleeping on the ground, on the mud ground.
Mm. Now when you guys were staying there, where was your family staying? What was it like? And were you guys also sleeping in
Yep.
mud huts on the ground, or did
No,
you
no,
guys?
no. Yeah, we had a concrete block house, with
Hmm.
concrete floors. We had mosquito nets because I got malaria a lot. Malaria is bad there. So we had electricity when the government wouldn't cut it off. The government would
Mm.
flip on and off the electricity at random. So, I had a fan. It was super hot. So I had a fan at night. I remember would be on me on my bedside table. It was a little fan, but man, I was like, this thing was like worth everything to me. And then it would
Yeah.
just go. It would just go off because the government would just flip the switch on the electricity, and we'd just be sitting there boiling hot at night. I remember that.
That's how you can tell how spoiled we are in the United States. I mean,
Yes,
these are things that those people experience that every single day. And
yes.
for us, if power goes out here for 1 hour, we're over here like crying and
Oh
screaming
yeah, yeah,
and going crazy. I mean,
yeah.
the same thing. Like you mentioned that people are sleeping in bare dirt, basically.
Yes.
Um, and most of us have beds, even low class folks here in the States.
Yeah.
We have a bed to sleep in, which is it's insane. I mean, honestly, that's something that I wish everybody could experience. I mean, I'm from the Dominican Republic, and that's exactly where it is. I don't want to say I was poor, because I mean we were truly blessed, and my parents did great at raising us. But we did experience the power outages. That's everywhere in the Dominican Republic, where we have mosquitoes all year round, and just like you, we have mosquito nets. And man, fans, did we love fans? We cannot
Yeah.
have our dad was against using AC, HVAC, the AC units, because literally, I mean, that's super expensive for power. But we did use fans. It's the same thing. So going back to Tanzania, I wanna dive deep into this one. Um, why did your parents, take you guys over there? What was their intent for you guys? And I assume they took the whole family, not just you.
Yeah. Yeah. It was a
So
whole family. So I was 12, my sister was 10, and my brother was 5.
wow.
And my mom and dad, my dad's a doctor, mom's a nurse.
Mm,
And so they were working at the mission hospital there. And they homeschooled us while we were there for that year. So that was another like
man.
shock, was going from regular school in the US to being homeschooled by your parents for a year in Africa. And yeah, I made straight 100s that year with my mom because she forced me to redo everything I got wrong. So it was the highest quality education I ever got. uh, but she had me memorizing poems and everything.
Man,
Yeah, dude, it
man.
was crazy.
And
But
I assume your dad was the principal, right?
my dad taught me math. My mom didn't want anything to do with the math, and
Mm,
so we had some good times. But they were working in the mission hospital there. So like a typical day was, my dad goes down to the hospital. He comes home at lunch and he's like, I did 3 C-sections and I delivered triplets once. And
wow.
he was doing surgery all day in
Mm.
this primitive hospital over there. Like, I mean, it was crazy. It was crazy. And we killed a snake. There was a snake that came on the mission that the kids started yelling about. We went over. They had just killed this 12-foot python and had just eaten a chicken.
Oh man.
And like we found mambas, like the snake mambas, in our house. Like it was crazy, man. It was like
Yeah,
you had to watch where you were.
that would be my ticket to go. I
You
don't
had to
do
watch where
snakes.
you were. That was the scariest part about it. You had to watch where you were stepping because there were snakes everywhere. So
No,
it was in a very wet area of the country where a lot of the rice is grown, and so
I got you.
there were a lot of snakes and mosquitoes. So anyway, all that to say, that made a lasting impression on me. And when we moved back home after that year, like I've never been the same. Like
Mm.
in a good way. But when people complain about McDonald's or Taco Bell or whatever restaurant it is that you hate, like that food is better than what we ate all year over there. you know,
Mhm.
and it's all relative. Like your suffering is relative. Like, and this is something I'm speaking to myself. My suffering is relative. Like when I get sick, I feel bad for myself or whatever. There's people that are way sicker. Like we
Yeah.
feel like we've got bad luck with our money. There's people that have no money. Like, and like the poor in the US are rich comparatively speaking to the rest of the poor in the world. So
Exactly.
everything is relative, man. And like we have such an opportunity to help people here that I actually think it's like it's something that we don't need to take lightly.
Yeah. No, absolutely, man. And and besides Tanzania, have you done other type of mission work, or any other work in other third world countries?
Yeah. Yeah. So after my first job, when I left that job, I wanted to go do something I felt good about. I had been doing
Mhm.
public accounting and I was working like 95 hours a week. I just felt like it was not the right thing for me. So I left that job and I went to Rwanda and I worked in an orphanage there. And always wanted to do orphan work, but I went over there and worked in an orphanage, got really close to a lot of those kids. I spent the summer over there working, and it was incredible. It was
Mhm.
incredible. And a lot of the kids were asking me if I would adopt them. I was like in my 20s,
Mm.
and I was like, I can't adopt you. I'm not even married. Like but like it kind of broke my heart. But and then another
Yeah.
thing that I saw over there during that time was I would have grown men, like 50, 40, 30-year-old men, asked to sit down with me and meet with me, and they would ask me for a job. They would ask me if I could hire them, if I could help them find work. and the unemployment rate over there at the time was really high. Like I want to say it was
Mm.
like 50% or something.
Oh man. Wow.
Really, really high. Like half the people there couldn't find work. And it's like,
Oh,
that's another thing that puts everything here in perspective. Like our unemployment rate here is like what, 4% or something?
yep.
You
If that,
here
right.
in the US, if you really want work, you can find work. Now it may not be the work you want, but you can find a job and you can make some money and you can dig
You
yourself.
can figure it out.
Yeah, you can figure it out. Over there, these people wanted work and they couldn't find work. So again, everything is relative. It's like you don't like your job, well, you know, in some places of the world you can't even find a job. So anyway, that put that work and kind of on my radar. I got it's got a special place in my heart from that
Hmm.
experience. So I always wanted to go back and be involved in that. And we can talk about this, you know, here in a bit, but that kind of correlates into what my long-term goal about this organization I want to start. I would like to start an organization that does relief work
Hmm.
with orphans. So I'd like to start the organization. I want it to plant churches. I want it to start schools, and I want it to do orphan work with street kids and kids that basically, you know, maybe somebody's family needs help. I want to figure out a way to support them so they don't have to give their kid up,
Yeah.
or create a children's home for kids who don't have any parents. I want to figure that out. So that's kind of the thing I'm working on. Lord willing, that's the thing I want to I want to build. So
Yeah, man. I love it. I love it. I know we're business guys. I mean, we're business oriented, and we are. I look up to you when it comes to self driven. I mean, once you're going, you can't stop, and that's something I admired about you.
thanks,
And
man. I appreciate
and
that. I look up to you a lot as well.
I appreciate it, brother. And one thing I say is like, similar to you, I wanna dive deep into giving back. And something I always tell myself, if I'm as passionate with business as I am, I need to be the same as passionate with charity giving or participating in it.
Yes.
So me, I'm big on like the way I drive myself. I'm big on giving myself to-do lists. That's how I push myself to do what I want to do. And I did the same thing with the nonprofit that I work on. That's the way that I'm like pushing myself to treat it. In my head, I'm telling myself, treat it like a business, because
I love it.
that's really what's going to get us to God eventually
Yes.
if we die, hopefully. So yeah, that's one thing that I tell myself, treat it like a business. That way you're very passionate about it. And I
Right.
love it. So let me ask you this. You were Tanzania and all these other places that you've been. You mentioned that you have three kids. How do you put those values on them? How do you share those values? How do you make sure that they, even though I'm not sure if you've taken them up to third world countries like this, but how do you, I don't know what's the word in English, but how do you place these same values that you have received through these experience to your little babies?
Yeah, I think the way that you share your values with your kids is by living your values.
Mm,
Um, your children have to witness you living the principles you're teaching them. Otherwise, it doesn't mean anything to them. Like
yeah.
you can't tell your kids not to smoke if you're smoking, right?
Mm,
I mean, you can tell them, but they're probably not going to listen, right?
yep.
And I recognize no human being is perfect. Like there's no judgment there in that statement, because I mean, I'm teaching my kid, I'm trying to teach my kids not to make the mistakes that I made, right?
Mm,
But at the same time, kids are very observant. Like they're going to learn more from what you're doing than what you're saying, really. So the principles that we've tried to teach our kids is like, we see somebody that needs help, we try to go help them, and they're a part of it. They see it, you know, and they've got a heart for helping people too, and we try to minister to our kids when they need help. We try to minister to them in the same way, but we have them in church.
yeah.
We do small groups at church. We volunteer our time to help in various ways. We've been for 15 years. Sarah and I supported 4 kids through an organization, 4 orphans through an organization. Well, Sarah came on after we got married, but it started when I was by myself.
Hmm.
But that was 15 years, and we have pictures of those kids on our refrigerator, and our kids see them, and they're like, "Who are these kids?" And these kids are kids from 3 of them are from Tanzania, one of them's from Ethiopia. But
Hmm.
um, and then just giving, just trying to give and put our money where our mouth is, kind of thing. Like
Hmm.
back up what we're saying with action and do to help others. And I'm trying to teach my kids, like, when you make money, you want to give some of it, you want to invest some of it, you
Mm.
want to save some of it, and then you can spend some of it. Like, your natural inclination when
I
you're
love that.
your natural inclination when you're a kid, when you get a dollar, is to go spend the dollar as fast as you can, right? But what you don't, this is what I just did with my kids. And I know a lot of people would be like, wow, I can't believe you did that. I got my kids invested in crypto with me. So my kids bought Bitcoin, my kids bought other crypto. And I told them, I said, look, you're making this money. Do you want to grow the money so you have more money later? Or do you want to spend it all? Because you could go spend it right now, but then it's gone and I'm not giving you more. Like, you got to
Mm.
make it, right? I was like, how about you invest some, you give some, and then you could spend some. I was like, or you could invest more, you could give some, and then you could spend none.
Yeah.
Well, they elected to spend none, to invest it, and to give, and right now their money has grown a lot. So, and I'm really excited for them. They always ask me, like, what's it at now? What's it at now? And dude, it's like multiplied,
Especially,
and so they're learning at age 10, 8, and 5. They're learning how to invest their money, even though it's not much money. But I keep telling them, like, if you're faithful with a little, you'll be given more, right?
yeah.
And yeah, so that's kind of how we approach it.
Yeah, I love it, man. I love it. Delay gratification. I mean, that's one of the things that they teach in a lot of places. Like, if you tell a kid, hey, if you go spend this now, that's it. You're not, just like you mentioned. But if you teach them, which it looks like your kid are learning that very well, if you teach them to teach them delayed gratification, man, that's the best outcome. If a lot of adults did that, a lot of people will be very wealthy today, and that's a hard lesson to learn, man.
Yeah,
But
I
that's
think, yeah, I think financially, one of the greatest predictors of your ability to build wealth is your ability to delay gratification. Like, it's
absolutely.
directly correlated. Like, if you can live below your means for a year, 5 years, 10 years, you can build significant wealth.
Yep.
Um, because you're instead of spending that money, you're investing that money. That money's multiplying. So I saw something on this the other day. They said, it was like somebody that studied millionaires or whatever. He said one of the highest correlations between this group is that they view money as an opportunity to multiply itself instead of an opportunity to spend it, right?
Mhm.
And in my own life, when I've seen that principle in my own life, where when I'm getting money, like, I'm wanting to invest most of it and
Yeah.
not spend most of it, or not save most of it. I'm wanting to invest it. That's when my money's grown the most. So it works the same with kids, right? Teach them that same principle. And I'm trying to prepare them to be good human beings when they get older, where they have a job and they're not just blowing all their money and in debt their whole life, and like really, coming to me later, like, for financial help. Like, I want them
Yeah.
to be able to stand on their own and swim for swim for themselves and fend for themselves, in this world. So
That's awesome, man. And I want to circle back to something that you said. I work a lot with the youth in my church, and one of the things that always happens is the parents come, they drop off their kids, and they're like, "Hey, here, teach my kids to be good kids,"
yeah,
and when they're already bad kids. I mean,
right,
and not to criticize any parent, but what you do at home is exactly what the kids are going to do outside of the home.
right,
And something I mean, I don't ever ask them because obviously it's personal, but something I always say, if your kid is doing bad habits, that tells me that in the household, something's not going great. And that's what you mentioned with your kids. What you do at home with your kids is what you should do. If you want them to be that way, that's what you have to do at home. If you smoke at home, guess what? There's a very high likelihood that your kid will be also a smoker.
yeah,
Um, I mean, same thing with drugs. If you do drugs, your kid most likely will do drugs.
yep,
And things of that sort. I mean, I don't want to get deep into that, but
yeah,
I'm a new parent. I mean, my baby is 6 months old now, but me and my wife, we changed the way we manage ourselves to make sure that we don't show that to the baby
yeah,
when he starts seeing it. Because I mean, kids start learning at an early age. I think he's already capturing a lot of the stuff, even at this young age. So that's awesome, man. I love what you're doing with your kids. And your kids are amazing. I mean, they
Thank you.
first time I met them, they were hilarious. I mean, I think you and Sarah are doing a great job there.
Thank you. I
So
appreciate that.
I want to go back to your financial success. Now, I know a lot about it. You even had a podcast where you talk about financial freedom. So how were you able? First thing, how were you able to reach financial freedom? How did that look at from the W-2 to now you being working for yourself? How did that look like? And we'll dive deeper into that.
Yeah. Yeah. So I did a podcast for about 5 years, and it's got going on 100 episodes. And it's called The Daily Real Estate Investors. If you want to hear more about that, you can go check that out. There's a lot of episodes there. Had some I think really good guests on the show. Tony's been on there. And yeah, there's more on there. And then, eventually got to be on Bigger Pockets and interviewed by them. That really helped my podcast grow a lot as well. I think I can't remember what episode number the Bigger Pockets episodes are, but there's actually 2 of them on there that I was on. But you could get on Google and look that up if you want to hear it. But that's got kind of the detailed story of all my investment stuff. But yeah, but the way I reached financial freedom was, I'd mentioned before that I was frustrated with my first job out of college. Like I was working at a Big Four accounting firm, doing audit work, and I was just like, this isn't what I need to be doing. Well, through trial and error, just trying different similar type jobs, like I ended up getting my MBA as well. And I loved my entrepreneurship classes and my finance classes, my real estate classes during my master's program. I finally just came to the conclusion, like I'm always going to be feeling like a misfit in this W-2 world until I start my own business and go out on my own. And because I'm one of those, like, I don't like being micromanaged. Like I like being given space to do my thing, and I'll get the job done and I'll do the best I can with it. But I need to be given time. And like, people that are very organized, dealing with someone that's more of a creative type, that can be frustrating for them because they could say, hey, I want you to do this. And then they come by and they look and the person's not got it done. They don't have 25% of it done yet. And so they think they're not working on it. Well, the way that the creative person works, sometimes they may take 50% of the time to like think on the problem.
Yep.
And they may procrastinate. Right. And that's how these people work. It's not that necessarily they're not going to get it done on time. It's that they don't work best. They work best having a deadline right up on them. Right. So I work best when I've got an hour to get this thing done and I got to crank it out, versus if I have a day and I have time, like I'm not going to knock it out first. I'm going to probably put it off and work on some other stuff that I also should have gotten done before. And I realize that's just kind of like how I'm wired. Right. But in that W-2 world, it's like I would focus and get my work done early because I knew it had to be done. And my manager would come by and see that I was done. And then he would just give me work from somebody else that hadn't done their work. And it was very frustrating because I was like, okay, so the reward for being quick and productive here is just being given more, right?
Yeah.
And there's no benefit financially to it. It's just, you're just on a hamster wheel. So I like having the rewards directly correlated with the output. And so I wanted to be in an environment where I could control that, right? So when I left, I went out on my own. My first year in business as an appraiser, a real estate appraiser and a broker, I think I made $30,000. So it was definitely not a get rich quick thing, but I had so much fun working for myself and not having a boss that I was hooked. And it was just a process of living below our means, reinvesting our money into real estate. And then the thing that really changed everything was I developed the skill sets through becoming an appraiser to really understand how to properly value real estate. Well, one of my best friends had a really good year at his sales job, and he approached me and said, hey, I've got $200,000. I want to invest in real estate, but I don't really know what I'm doing. Can you give me an idea of how to do this? And I said, well, I want to invest in real estate. I don't have $200,000, but I feel like I've got the knowledge to find us deals to learn. You know, I had flipped some houses before and done a Burr property. He was like, yeah, let's work together. So the deal we structured was he would put in the 200,000. I would do everything. I would find the deals, get the deals, manage the rehab, manage the contractors, manage the financing, everything. And then he and I would split the deal 50-50. We would own everything 50-50, and he would be paid back his $200,000 before I got anything, before I took any profit. And every bit of profit that would come off that property would go back to him as a repayment of his 200,000 before we split anything. So that's what we did. And, you know, like I said, the detailed story is on Bigger Pockets, but long story short, over the course of 5 years and a lot of chaos, we were able to build a portfolio of about $4 million worth of single families. That was in Fort Worth, Texas. We then, in 2020, I was sitting down with him and we were looking at our portfolio, and we had like $2 million of equity that we had built up in this portfolio. The portfolio was only making us like $40,000 a year profit, which on $2 million of equity, that's only 5%. That's a 5% return on equity. That's not good, right? But we were looking at it. We had done the Burr strategy, and we were looking at it as like, we just created $40,000 of income out of nothing. You know what I mean? Because of all these refinances and getting our money back. And he still had his 200,000 involved, or he hadn't gotten his 200,000 back. So I'm trying to figure out how to get his 200,000 back, because it's really not cash flowing that well. And I'm doing the math, and I'm like, we got $2 million in here. The problem is that we're just like, all of our equity is locked into these properties. How do we unlock this? And so I was like, what about vacation rentals? And he purchased a vacation rental. We observed how it went. It went really well. He bought it on his own. We're like, we need to sell all these single families, do 1031 exchanges over into vacation rentals. And we ran the numbers, and it's like, it'll make $500,000 profit a year. Just what we currently own, just moving it over. And so we did exactly that. We did 1031 exchanges. We would sell the single families, 1031 exchange the profit and the proceeds into these vacation rental cabins in the Smokies. And I also, at the same time, got my broker license up there. So I was also making commissions off these. So when we bought a $2 million cabin, like 12-bedroom cabin, I would get a $60,000 check. So that's like a 3% commission on $2 million. I mean, so my income went like way up. And so simultaneously, my cash flow income's going way up, and my profit from just my real estate services company's going way up. So we went from making $40,000 a year on our portfolio to making $600,000 a year on our portfolio. Hang on just a second. I'm doing a podcast.
Let me see, at the 36-50 minute mark.
No, you cannot go outside right now. I'm doing a podcast. I'll be in just a minute. Hang on a second. Sorry.
You're good. No, you're good.
Not to bother me, but let's.
You got kids.
We're in the podcast now. I told you not to come outside. You're getting snow all over your clothes. You cannot go outside right now. I told you not to bother me. Not to listen. Go back in. All right, you're gonna have to cut that.
I'm thinking about leaving it in. This is amazing.
Yeah, you can leave it in if you want. That's fine with me.
You know, I've been listening to Joe Rogan's podcast recently. You know, so just keep people that I want to listen to, because a lot of it is crap. But
I like Joe Rogan.
Yeah, they're raw with it. I mean, they leave some of the stuff that just talking and stuff. So I mean, honestly, this is part of it. I mean,
it is. It is. It's literally snowing. The kids have already been out, and they
want to go back.
They had their 3 layers of clothes drenched and covered in snow, and their hands are freezing their feet. And so I got them all undressed, put on all their warm clothes, got them under a blanket, came out here to do this, and they're back walking around in their pajamas in the snow right now outside my door.
Hey, so man, you gotta love it. You gotta love it.
I know.
Mean, we only get this in Alabama maybe once or twice a year. So.
I know. It's true. It's true. So, hey, to finish the story, we went from $40,000 a year on that portfolio to now $600,000 a year. And we hired one of my friends to manage it for us. So we were able to give him a much better job than he had as well, with more flexibility. So now the thing is pretty much running itself with him running it for us. And so it's about as passive as you can get
Mm.
with real estate while owning the stuff yourself and not being in like a silent investor or something. So, so I'm getting roughly $300,000 a year from that. Then I've got my real estate services company. So, I'm just telling that I'm not telling this to brag. I'm telling this to show you how God can bless you with diligent work and with being willing to take some risk and, and also giving. My first year I made 300, but there's been years since then that I made seven figures doing this.
Mm.
So, all glory to him. And this last year was a lower year because the market went back down. So I didn't make seven figures this last year. I don't want to act like I make that every year. I don't, but this is possible for everyone, and if you're frustrated in your job, like there is probably something out there that you could be doing that you would enjoy more that could actually make you more money. And even if it doesn't make you more money, if you enjoy it more and you can
Yeah.
pay your bills, it might still be a good decision for you. But anyway, yeah, it's been such a blessing to go from, like, I was the person at the W2 that was like, what am I doing with my life?
Yeah.
Like, what am I doing? Like, it was really hard on me at times. And also because I tried a number of different jobs, I felt like I was also receiving the kind of outside criticism of he doesn't know what he wants to do, you
Mm.
know? And I also feel like this is kind of a recurring thing with like entrepreneurial types. Like you try a lot of different things. That's part of the entrepreneurial process. You try and fail at different things and you pivot. And
Yeah.
people from the outside that don't do that as much, they see that as like you don't have any direction, right? But what you're trying to do is like figure out what's going to work best and then go with that. So even in this real estate story, it's like we started out with using the BRRRR strategy on these single family properties, but we didn't stay with single family. We had to move the money from the single family to the vacation rentals to really open up the income on the whole thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now, did you and Sarah already were married while you were going through all these different jobs, and did you guys already have kids as well?
Well, so we got married about 10 years ago, and the accounting job I had at the beginning of the story, that was when I was single. So it's
Gotcha.
not as hard changing jobs, of course, when you're not married with kids. And so a lot of this was before I was married. And then once I got married, I tried a couple different things that didn't really work. And she was, she had some jobs she didn't like either. And we're both kind of those kinds of people. Like we could move to I can move to Thailand next year
Yeah.
and be perfectly happy, and she could as well. And so like when you're on the same page on that, like we view life as kind of an adventure. If we feel like we're not where we're supposed to be or something could be improved, we're happy to try it,
Yeah.
So that's kind of where we were with the whole thing. We're a little more cautious with it now because we want to create a stable environment for our kids, but we feel like our kids are thriving. And I actually feel like, going back to my Africa story, when I was a kid, one of the things that my parents did for me, that's one of the best things they ever did for me, was show me other parts of the world and other cultures and
Mm-hmm.
how blessed I am to have what I have here. And I want to do the same for my kids.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm with you there. I want my child to eventually come down with me to these places so he can see the world from a different perspective, and also encrust that sense of giving back to others. And I'm the same way, man. I mean, my wife's a teacher, and eventually, I'm pursuing passive income. So my plan is for us to live somewhere off the grid, somewhere where we can probably be serving others while, and take the whole family with us. So that's one of my goals, is to do that. So we'll see how it goes in a couple of years, but that is my
I love it.
plan. Now, something that I love what you said. I want to talk about passive income because I'm doing the same thing. Um, my plan is to leave the W2, and hopefully I will do that this year. Not hopefully, I will do that this year. I know I will. And one of my things is like, I don't want to leave my W2 to go to another W2.
Yeah.
I want to build a business that can run on its own. And I think it's what's the E-Myth author? Geez, I'm drawing a blank.
Michael Gerber.
Yeah, Michael Gerber. He actually says, if you quit a job to go to your business and it's a job and it cannot run on its own, then you don't have a business. You have a job.
Right.
You know, So
True.
I don't want to do that. I'm working right now. I'm transitioning the properties that I have, convert them to completely passive. Where I'll be an asset manager. I'll manage
Yes.
the property managers, but I don't want to be day to day involved. And right now, that's the difficult part. Especially, for example, I have an Airbnb, which is my old house. That's 5 minutes from where I live. It's so tempting that when it's something that breaks, that's very simple for me to go ahead and go fix it because it's only 5 minutes. But I'm conditioning myself to call a maintenance guy, even if it's that simple. Pay $50, $60 for them to do that simple fix. And yes, I'm probably like wasting money because it's a simple fix, but it's the mindset. I mean, it's if you want to create something passive, that's the way to do it. So,
Yes.
and I love that, man. I'm like I said, I'm all I'm in alignment with you to where you can leave, you can live somewhere else, leave and be completely off the grid if you want to. So yeah, yeah. So I assume at the top of your whys, that's your number one is for you to be able to do anything you want with the kids, or what's the top of the why as to why you pursued financial freedom and why you do what you do?
Yeah, I view it as the most important thing I can do with my life
Hmm.
is use it to the maximum potential to honor God.
Mm,
Period. Like m- a lot of people will probably knee jerk reaction not like this, but my kids are secondary to that. Like
mm.
your kids are going to benefit if you're pursuing God to the maximum you can. Like
Yep.
your kids are not your focus. Your kids are an important they're what I mean they're up on my list at the very top, right? But God is ahead of my kids. My faith is ahead of my kids because it has to be. If your kids are ahead of your faith, then you've got an idol, right? That's how I see
Yeah.
it.
No,
That's how
I
I see
agree.
it. I mean,
I agree.
because there are people who will give their kids anything and do anything for their kids, and it's actually bad for their kids, right? Because their kids need their parents to have their priorities straight, right? So my why is honoring God to the maximum of to the max potential of what He's given me with the talents He's given me in my life, and then secondary to that is my family. You know, being there for my wife, supporting her, raising my kids to know and love God with their whole hearts, and also another major goal of mine in my life is to support my kids with the giftings they have and help them develop those giftings as well. So I want to always be cognizant of the fact that like I'm not trying to get them to be like me. I'm trying to get
Hmm.
them to be the best versions of themselves, right? And let them make their own mistakes and their own choices and stuff. But my why is, if I can go out with the gifts I've been given in business and entrepreneurship, and I can do something that impacts a lot of people for good, I will consider my life that I have lived my life well. Whereas
Hmm.
to put this in perspective, like I think raising your kids well is so important. I think your priorities as a human being is to take care of your family first. I want to make sure you understand that that's what I'm about. You got to take care of your family first, and
Yeah.
then give after that to help others, right? But I think if I hope I'm making sense with this. Like my priority is to raising my children and being loyal to my family, but my why is to go out and try to make the best impact I can to help others.
Yeah. And no, no, and I love that perspective. And I agree 100%. I mean, because it comes out, I mean, if to give an example, let's say, your kid commits a crime that is morally incorrect in the eyes of God.
Right.
If you put your kids first, you will lie, you will support
Yeah.
that for him not to go to jail.
Right.
But if you want a kid that understand that that is incorrect, that you should never do that, you're going to let him go through the consequences. That's just my
Yeah.
personal opinion, and that's putting God
Yeah.
first before your family because I think that is the right way to do that. So
Yeah.
I love it, man. I love it. Um, Now you mentioned something. You mentioned that you got pretty sick in the last couple of years, and I don't want to dive into deep because I mean I know some of it might be personal, but um, for those, the purpose of this question is for those that either have a sickness or something like that. How do you overcome that and continue what you do? Because I mean, you're a busy guy, and you do a lot of stuff. And I mean, you're on camera right now, super energetic, and I've seen you. I mean, personally, I've seen you in your lows, and you're still super energetic, happy. So, how do you overcome the sickness? Is it faith related? Is it, does it motivate you more? What is it that drives you when you're down, when you're sick, when you're going through a whole bunch of mental struggles? What do you do that helps you continue moving forward and continue being the Josiah Smelser that I know?
Man, I think it comes down to the fact that we're all a vapor, right? We're a vapor in the wind kind of thing. Like we're here today, gone tomorrow. So, this 2 years ago when I started getting sick, I got this upper respiratory thing going on where it's like we just thought it was bronchitis, pneumonia, that kind of stuff. And it just wouldn't go away. It just never would go away. And it got to the point where I couldn't sleep. I mean, and then they were doing cultures of this stuff, and it comes back with this bacteria that is extremely difficult to kill. Like I'm reading that you'll have this your whole life. And it also, I get on Google and I look it up, and it says your life expectancy is 5 years. So I'm like, I'm 43 years old right now. So we're talking, I'm 41. I've got little kids. I finally worked myself to death to get the business where it needs to be. And it's like, now I've got this. And I'm like, why? Why did this happen to me? Kind of thing. It's like kind of like Job. I felt like I'm trying to honor God with my life. And I've got this illness that came out of nowhere and I couldn't even figure out why I got it. Like, and it stumped all these doctors. I was going to all these different doctors, really good doctors that were like, we can't figure out what's going on here, And when I tested positive for this bacteria and I read that I've got 5 years to live, I'm like, okay, I've really got two choices here. My first choice is to get all depressed and feeling sorry for myself and to like just stop working and stop being productive and stop what I'm doing and just try to live my last 5 years, in the easiest and most non-stressful way possible. And the other option is to like fight it, like with every fiber of my being and to leave no stone unturned. And I've always thought like, we're all going to die, right? Wouldn't you rather live the last years of your life with a smile on your face and being productive and doing everything to the best of your ability, and people remember that about you, versus the other option of just being bitter and frustrated and negative and shutting down and quitting? And like, that's one thing about me. Like I made a ton of mistakes, but like, I'm very hard headed when it comes to like, when I have a goal, like I'm like a dog that's got his teeth locked onto something, won't let go, So I was like, I'm going to approach this just like that. Like I'm going to be so tenacious and I'm not going to quit. And I'm like, I'm going to leave no stone unturned. I'm going to do anything and everything I can. And so I literally went to every doctor. I did everything. I watched every video. I read every book. And I just started taking every possible treatment I could get to beat this. And I spent so much time in prayer. I went forward in church and had people pray for me. I had people praying over me. I had a lady that, that some people say has got a gift of healing pray over me. That was crazy. It was crazy. And I just had people texting me all the time. And in the middle of all of this, there are multiple times where I thought, like, I would wake up at night, couldn't breathe. Like I'm coughing up stuff that's like, don't even want to get into how nasty it looks. I'm like, what has happened to me? Like I'm dying, There were multiple occasions where I was like, I am not going to live. I'm going to die with this. Multiple occasions. So I had to come to terms with the fact that like it was very likely I was going to die soon. And it's like, what am I going to do? So I chose to continue to honor God with my attitude, continue to pray, continue to give thanks. I would come out here to my office and I would just spend time in prayer at 4 a.m., 3 a.m. when nobody else was up,
Mm-hmm.
just praying to God, just glorifying God, thanking God for what he's given me, thanking God for this thing that's happened to me. And I just had to approach it that way. And the crazy thing is, one day I just got better and I'm still well.
I'll say
And
that it's not crazy. That's a miracle right there, brother.
dude, I keep thanking God for it. And I'm like, I'm honestly nervous it's going to come back, but I'm like, you know, and I did every bit of everything I could. Like I was taking 3 medicines that were so strong, they would make me sick just taking the medicines, and they didn't do anything. Like this stuff I had just kept right on going. It was like ignoring this medicine that was terrible.
Mm-hmm.
And the worst part about the whole thing was like not only the lack of like heart difficulty breathing, but it was that I was getting like 2 hours of sleep a night. So when you get 2 hours of sleep for like a week, you feel bad. But when you get 2 hours of sleep for like a year and a half, you're like, your emotions are so fragile. You know what I mean? So it was like I was dealing with that. That was the hardest part about it. But all of a sudden, I just started getting better. And like part of it was I was exercising like crazy. I was going to the gym every day. I was doing cardio. I tried this cold water stuff. I was taking all these different medicines. I was taking probiotics. I was taking multivitamins. I was doing everything and anything. I stopped eating dairy. I stopped eating gluten. I stopped eating eggs.
Man.
I took allergy tests. I did all these tests, and eventually the stuff just started going away. And I just think it was God's goodness. And I don't know whether this was given to me as a test. This was given to me to develop me and into a better person, because I think I've certainly come a long way with some things in light of what's happened. But it was the hardest by far. I mean, nothing even compares. Like having malaria 5 times in Africa was a joke compared to this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But man, I mean, people out there struggling with chronic sickness, like it is a serious journey that you're on. You know, I think the hardest part is the mentality and the mental struggle you're dealing with. And like, you just got to remember that God is still there. God is still with you. And you have to adapt and adopt a mindset of you're going to do everything you can within your power. You can't control some of the things that are going on, but you can control your response to them.
Yeah, absolutely. Man, well, first of all, I appreciate you sharing that, because that's I mean, not everybody would share that, and I really appreciate you. I didn't think you were going to share the whole story. I know we've talked about it, you know, outside of a podcast and stuff, but I didn't know you were going to share the whole thing. So I really appreciate you sharing that, and I think it can motivate somebody that's going through an illness. It can motivate them to fight and not feel depressed for what they're going through. Another thing that I can point out from that, I don't know if you heard my wife just, I don't know, scream. I think she just dropped something. My bad.
I didn't hear it.
You did hear it?
No.
Okay. Well, man, I guess this mic is doing some good work. But anywho, another thing that I get from hearing you speak is that when we go through a struggle, I don't think the first thing that people think of is thanking God. I think if you're going through a struggle, first of all, you're going to be like, please, God, help me. Please help me now. Help me now.
And I was saying that.
Yeah. And but you mentioned something that you were thanking God for what is going on. I mean, I have not seen many people say that in public, at least, but that is something to recognize. I mean, if you're Christian, even if you're not Christian, you know, God, the God up there has the power to do anything. And you know that what you're going through is for a reason.
Yeah.
So obviously you got to be thankful for what you're going through, because it can probably make you a better person, or he may be calling you to him, and maybe it's your time to go to meet your maker.
Yes.
So yeah, man, I love that. And I think I told you one time via text, I told you that God is not done with you. I don't know I don't know what he has planned for you, but he is not done with you, dude. I mean, again, when we talked about the entity that you want to create, I think you have a bigger purpose in life, and this is just an experience that is gonna drive to greater things. So I'm excited to what's coming, man, and I'm excited about. I mean, I'm happy that you're still here with us, and the experience that you went through. Honestly, this is a testimony that can change somebody's life. So please, I would say wherever you go, continue to share that, because I think that's something that could move, it could move mountains for sure.
I appreciate
So,
that. I really appreciate all the prayers and and the positive words you gave me throughout that, for sure.
absolutely, brother. So I want to transition before we wrap up. You put a post on Instagram. I'm not gonna describe the image. I can't pull it up right now. Actually, I may have to bring that in sometime. You know how Joe Rogan brings in screens into his podcast. I may have to do that eventually. But you put a post of an interesting picture, and it said "The Pivot" as the title. I'm not sure what you can share, but what can you share? What's going on there?
Yeah. So, I mentioned that I've been doing my real estate podcast for 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
I went so hardcore on real estate for so long. And the podcast was sharing my journey to financial freedom. And
Mm-hmm.
God blessed me with that. I was able to be on the Bigger Pockets podcast, and I wrote a book called Dream It and Build It: How to Crush Your Real Estate Investing Goals. You can find that on Amazon if that interests you. But I feel like I've reached my goal with real estate, and like, it's the weirdest thing. Like, I don't want this to sound prideful. I'm not saying this in a prideful way, but it's like I'm making enough money. Like, I know how to make money, and I feel like I could continue to do real estate and continue to make a lot of money at real estate, but it just doesn't really interest me. Like, I'm kind of at this point, like, I'm 43. If I live to be, like, let's say I'm 50% of the way through my life, I may be more. Like, let's say I live to be 86. If the next 43 years of my life, I make a bunch of money every year, for what? What's the purpose? Like, I've got enough money right now to be able to pursue creating my own art to the world. And that to me is more valuable than making $1 million this year, because what am I going to do with the $1 million? Well, then I'm going to do tax planning, and I'm going to go buy more real estate, and then it's going to make me more money. And then I'm going to go do more real estate. It's like, to what end? Like, what are we doing with all this money? You know? So the pivot is about, I'm changing I'm completely shifting my strategy to making a different type of content than the podcast. And it's going to be I'm doing a YouTube channel. My first video is going to be, I stayed in luxury tree houses, and it's kind of like an adventure documentary kind of thing, documentary. You can edit this part out. I don't know. It's kind of like an adventure challenge documentary type.
Okay.
Focus on what I'm doing with my financial freedom and, like, just experiencing the world. And then I've got another interview set up with a guy that's like kind of a celebrity, and that's happening January 31st. And this guy's a Christian. He's by far the highest profile guest I've ever had. And I'm going out to his house in LA and going to interview him. But I'm trying to set up my content in a way that's like, it's entertaining. It's providing value. It's also bringing a positive light into the world with my content. And it's not just about how to maximize ROI, how to make more money on your flips, how to make more money on your investments. Like, I'm just tired of all that. I'm really tired of it. Like, I want people to be able to make money and stuff, but it's like, there's so much of that. Like, I think what we need is something different. So I'm kind of pivoting away from that into this new thing. And the biggest reason to do that is I think I have the best chance of, number one, creating something I love, that I love making, like, which is a really positive headspace to be in. Like, if you're making something for you that somebody else is going to like, that's the best place you can be. If you're making something for someone else all the time, nobody's going to like it. It's kind of like Rick Rubin talks about, like,
and you're going to be miserable.
Your art form to the world needs to be, God put something in you that you're really good at, and you need to do that to the best of your ability. And you need to make it the best you can for what you think is good. And then someone's going to resonate with that, because there's people out there that like the same thing as you. I think the content strategy is backwards. Like, I don't think we're supposed to be making something that other people will like. We're supposed to be making something that we love and are really proud of, and then other people will like it. And that's where I feel like the real estate stuff has been backwards. It's like, I'm making this content so all these people will like it, and resonate with it. But what I should be doing is making it for me and what resonates with me, and then they'll like it. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? So this is about that. It's like, I'm interested in staying in treehouse Airbnbs, so I'm going to make a video on it that's really engaging, that's really entertaining, that's really positive, that's really fun, and I think people will connect with that. And the goal is to grow that channel, monetize that channel, and start this 1,000 organization that plants 1,000 schools, churches, and children's homes in impoverished areas of the world. And if you see Mr. Beast, he's got a philanthropy channel. That's what gets me the most jazzed up. His regular channel is good. It's great to see all the stuff he's doing. But it's kind of like random entertainment stuff. The philanthropy channel, where he's going and like paying for people's eye surgery, starting a school, helping orphans, like digging wells. That's what I'm trying to get to. So that's the pivot. That's the pivot.
I love it, man. I love it, man. I got to put you in contact with a friend of mine. He's an investor too. He does a lot of tree houses over in the Chattanooga, Blue Ridge area.
Oh, sweet.
So yeah. I think it'll be good, man. I think this has been a great interview. We've gone from real estate to talking about God to talking about why we travel the world, Tanzania, you name it. We went everywhere. No, man, but I told you once before, I'm your second biggest fan after Sarah, who's your wife. I'm all for you, man. I'm excited as to what you're doing. You're
Dude,
a friend that I look up to.
Man, I feel the same way about you. I'm in your corner until we're both dead. So whatever that is, we may live to be 100. Like I'll be supporting you with what you're doing until then. And just know, like, you know, I think you're going to make a big impact with all the stuff you're doing, you know. Just stay the course, and keep going, man. It's going to be great.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. Well, where can people find out about you? Where can they follow you?
So the YouTube channel I'm working on is going to just be Josiah Smelser. So that's JOSIAHSMELSER. So you can just get on YouTube and look up Josiah Smelser. It's going to be there. The Daily Real Estate Investor channel is still there. There's episodes there that you could catch. And then the podcast on audio has got all the episodes over the last 5 years with, you know, a lot of guests you might recognize if you're into real estate. So I'm on Instagram. It's at Daily Real Estate Investor, but I'm thinking I'm going to change that to my name as well. So that might be changed to Josiah Smelser as well. So I don't know when you listen to this, if you look up Daily Real Estate Investor and it's not there, that is probably under my name, Josiah Smelser. So you can find me on Instagram for now. I'm not sure. I've considered deleting Instagram just because, like, I want to. Yeah, I mean, I'd love to know your thoughts on this, but like, to me, like, if you're focused on making the best art you can make with your life, like, how much of these different distractions do you need in your life? You know, like, and Instagram at its best is like a great way to connect with people, and like you and I connected over Instagram, you know, right. But at its worst, it's a massive distraction from what you should be doing. Right. So I still don't really know exactly what the proper balance with that is. What are your thoughts?
Man, no, I'm the same. Well, there's several things. I limit myself to 1 hour of social media a day.
That's good.
And when I go over that limit, it's because I'm posting content. And it's because first of all, the reason for social media, in my opinion, was to follow with people that you don't see on a daily basis.
Right.
That's what Facebook was founded for. But now you get on these platforms and you don't even see your friends. You see a whole bunch of suggested content from Facebook itself, TikTok, whatnot. And I think you start scrolling, and obviously they got an algorithm going that'll get you continue to stay hooked. And I think a lot of us are wasting our time in this thing. I mean, literally doing hours of doing absolutely nothing but just scrolling. So I think it's a great tool, and that's the only reason why I still have my social media accounts, to be honest. Yeah. But I am limiting myself, and I actually I have a virtual assistant that's going to handle the majority of my my social media accounts, because I am fed up. I mean, yeah, it's really what it is. I am so fed up. And now YouTube and I'm not YouTube, I'm sorry, Facebook, you can't even turn off the suggested content anymore. At first you could actually turn it off, but now you can't even turn that off. So you're going to be seeing things that you don't really even want to see.
Right.
So yeah, man, it's getting to that point where we have to get in turn speaking, get some control, because it's ridiculous now.
And I think like I'll lead the episode off with this. Like, I've been watching a ton of videos and listening to a ton of content from Rick Rubin. He was that producer that produced a lot of the best albums that you've heard in the last 20 years, like Beastie Boys, Johnny Cash, Jay-Z, all these really successful artists. I mean, he produced Adele, so a wide range of a lot of different types of music, but they all had this guy producing them, right? And it's like, why is this guy so successful? Well, if you go read up on this guy and listen to some of what he talks about, he says that your approach to the world has to be, you're making the very best art that you can make for you. And after you've done the very best you can with it, you're okay with putting it out in the world, and you're okay with the response to that. Right. So when you do the very best you can on an episode or whatever, and you put it out there and it gets 10 likes, that's okay. It's okay, because that was the art that you made. It's like a diary entry, right?
Yeah.
You make an entry in your diary. Who's to come tell you that your diary entry is not right? It's your diary entry. It's not somebody else's. So they can't tell you need to do this better. It's like, no, I was documenting my own art to the world. So, and he says that when you do that, when you make the very best thing you can make, sometimes it's going to be well received, and sometimes it's not going to be well received. But to me, the distraction that social media can bring in is like trying to tell you what kind of art to make. Like you need to tune that out and make what you feel like invigorates you and is your reason to be here in the world. And then you're okay with it. And you're not worried about the judgment that comes along with people not liking it. You're not worrying about it getting traction. You're just out there doing the best you can with it. And then sometimes when you make something, it's going to really resonate. You'll get 1 million views and you'll get 100,000 subscribers and all this other stuff. Sometimes you'll make it, it's got 10 views, and it's like, you don't care because that's the best you could do.
Exactly.
So
I love it, man. That's a deeper conversation that we'll have to get into some other time, because that's a whole topic on its own.
Yeah.
Dude, I appreciate you coming, man, joining me here.
Yeah.
I know I want to get you at the later time whenever you got everything else going on and the stuff we talked about, it's already up and going. We'll get you back, and that way people can follow with your progress, dude.
Yeah. I want to get you involved in some of the episodes. I'm having my friend, one piece of the whole thing I'm having my friends do that's going to be kind of like something that's a little different is I'm going to have some clips from my friends involved in each episode as part of the challenge. So I don't want to give away too much about that, but I'll get you involved on that.
Okay. Sounds good, man. I'm all for it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you everybody for listening in. This is again our first episode. So please, follow us. I'm at Ant1234 Moreno, and the YouTube channel is called Wealth with Purpose. And I'll be bringing in a lot of individuals that again have generated wealth and have control of their time to give to others. So please follow us, join us, and thank you again, Josiah, for joining. We'll catch you guys back on the next episode.